Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. I've decided to start a new series in which I'll be reading parts of different books that I find worthy of sharing. Today, I'll be reading part of a book called Beyond Order. The chapter is called Work as Hard as You Possibly Can on at least one thing and see what happens. The value of heat and pressure. When coal is subjected to intense heat and pressure, far below the Earth's surface, its atoms rearrange themselves into the perfect, repeating, crystalline alignment characterizing a diamond. The carbon that makes up coal also becomes maximally durable in its diamond form, as diamond is the hardest of all substances. Finally, it becomes capable of reflecting light. This combination of durability and glitter gives a diamond the qualities that justify its use as a symbol of value. That which is valuable is pure, properly aligned, and glitters with light. And this is true for the person just as it is for the gem. Light, of course, signifies the shining brilliance of heightened and focused consciousness. Human beings are conscious during the day when it is light. Much of that consciousness is visual and therefore dependent on light. To be illumined or enlightened is to be exceptionally awake and aware, to attain a state of being commonly associated with divinity. To wear a diamond is to become associated with the radiance of the sun, like the king or queen whose profile is stamped on the sun-like disk of the gold coin, a near universal standard of worth. Heat and pressure transform the base matter of common coal into the crystalline perfection and rare value of the diamond. The same can be said of a person. We know that the multiple forces operating in the human soul are often not aligned with one another. We do the things we wish we would not do, and we do not do the things we know we should do. We want to be thin, but we sit on the couch eating Cheetos and despairing. We are directionless, confused, and paralyzed by indecision. We are pulled in all directions by temptations, despite our stated will, and we waste time, procrastinate, and feel terrible about it, but we do not change. It was for such reasons that archaic people found it easy to believe that the human soul was haunted by ghosts, possessed by ancestral spirits, demons, and gods, none of whom necessarily had the best interest of the person at heart. Since the time of the psychoanalysts, these contrary forces, these obsessive and sometimes malevolent spirits, have been conceptualized psychologically as impulses, emotions, or motivational states, or as complexes which act like partial personalities united within the person by memory but not by intent. Our neurological structure is indeed hierarchical. The powerful, instinctual servants at the bottom governing thirst, hunger, rage, sadness, elation, and lust can be easily ascend and become our masters, and just as easily wage war with one another. The resilience and strength of a united spirit is not easy to attain. A house divided against itself, proverbially, cannot stand. Likewise, a poorly integrated person cannot hold himself together when challenged. He loses union at the highest level of psychological organization. He loses the properly balanced admixture of properties that is another feature of the well-tempered soul and cannot hold his self together. We know this when we say he is lost or he just fell apart before he picks up the pieces and rearranges them. Such a person is likely to fall prey to domination by one or more partial personalities. This might be a spirit of rage or anxiety or pain leaping in to occupy the person when his temper is lost. You can see this occurring most clearly in the case of a 2-year-old having a tantrum. He has lost himself temporarily and is, for the moment, pure emotion. This is an occurrence that is often deeply upsetting to the 2-year-old himself and one of an intensity that would be terrifying to beholders if manifested by an adult. The archaic motivational systems governing anger merely push the toddler's developing personality aside and have their way with his mind and actions. This is a true and unfortunate defeat for the still fragile, centralizing ego struggling against powerful forces towards psychological and social integration. Lack of internal union also makes itself known in the increased suffering, magnification of anxiety, absence of motivation, and lack of pleasure that accompany indecision and uncertainty. The inability to decide among 10 things, even when they are desirable, is equivalent to torment by all of them. Without clear, well-defined, and non-contradictory goals, the sense of positive engagement that makes life worthwhile is very difficult to obtain. Clear goals limit and simplify the world. As well, reducing uncertainty, anxiety, shame, and the self-devouring physiological forces unleashed by stress. The poorly integrated person is thus volatile and directionless, and this is only the beginning. Sufficient volatility and lack of direction can rapidly conspire to produce the helplessness and depression characteristic of prolonged futility. This is not merely a psychological state. The physical consequence of depression, often preceded by excess secretion of the stress hormone cortisol, are essentially indistinguishable from rapid aging, weight gain, cardiovascular problems, diabetes, cancer, and Alzheimer's. The social consequences are just as serious as the biological. A person who is not well put together overreacts to the slightest hint of frustration or failure. He cannot enter into productive negotiations, even with himself, because he cannot tolerate the uncertainty of discussing potential alternative futures. He cannot be pleased because he cannot get what he wants. And he cannot get what he wants because he will not choose one thing instead of another. He can also be brought to a halt by the weakest of arguments. One of his multiple wearing subpersonalities will latch on to such arguments, often contrary to his best interest, and use them in the form of doubts to buttress its contrarian position. A deeply conflicted person can therefore be stopped, metaphorically, with the pressure of a single finger exerted on his chest, even though he may lash out against such an obstacle. To move forward with resolve, it is necessary to be organized, to be directed towards something singular and identifiable. Aim, point, all this is part of maturation and discipline, and something to be properly valued. If you aim at nothing, you become plagued by everything. If you aim at nothing, you have nowhere to go, nothing to do, and nothing of high value in your life, as value requires the ranking of options and sacrifice of the lower to the higher. Do you really want to be anything you could be? Is that not too much? Might it not be better to be something specific and then perhaps to add to that? Would that not come as a relief, even though it is also a sacrifice? That's something to consider. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.